I invited a friend as a gift for my husband. Yes, you heard that right. I wanted to spice up our relationship, and that's exactly what I did. Hey guys, today I'm going to share with you a story full of tension and surprises, the kind that makes your heart race. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support us and guarantee more spicy stories like this. So let's go. I'm Thais, married to Diego. Our relationship has always been good, but lately I missed something more, a hint of newness one night. After a few glasses of wine, I blurted out an idea I had been holding on to for a while. What if we add someone to spice things up? Diego froze. He put down the newspaper slowly, as if he were processing each word, and the silence that followed seemed to extend time. He stared at me, his expression divided between disbelief and caution. Finally, he broke the silence. Taz, are you serious, or is this some kind of joke? I smiled, trying to look confident, but feeling the tension in the air. It was normal for him to be suspicious. After all, after so many years together, a proposal like that seemed to come out of nowhere, but for me it wasn't new. It was something that had been bouncing around in my head for months. And there I was, eager for his answer. No, Diego, it's not a prank, it's serious, I replied, with a firmness that surprised even me. I think we can try something new. Our marriage is great, but who said it couldn't be even better? Diego continued looking at me, as if trying to decipher what I really wanted to say. He was always careful, the opposite of me, who often spoke without considering the consequences. It was this calmness of his, this methodical way that attracted me from the beginning, as if he always knew the next step. But now he seemed bewildered, almost lost, and it gave me a strange feeling of control. You're telling me you want to bring someone else to our room? Is that right? He spoke slowly, as if he needed to hear the words to absorb the idea. Yes, that's exactly it. Why not? I replied, maintaining a calm tone, even though my heart was racing. The silence lengthened, more intense this time. Diego got up and went to the kitchen window, staring at the garden outside, while I waited, not knowing exactly what he would say next. Diego seemed to need time to absorb everything, so I gave him space, waiting patiently. After a moment, he asked without looking away from the garden, "And you have someone in mind?" The question I knew would come up arrived, and now was the time to be careful. Several possibilities had crossed my mind, but none really seemed to fit. Until I thought about Nas, my best friend since college. She and I have always had a frank and trusting relationship. Over time, our conversations became deeper, and she was one of the few people with whom I felt comfortable discussing any topic, even fantasies. Natty, I replied, watching his reaction. Diego finally turned to face me, surprise written all over his face. Natty, our friend. Natty, I nodded. She once mentioned that she'd had an experience like this with her boyfriend, and for them it was something positive. Diego sighed, running a hand through his hair, clearly processing what he heard. Thais, this is all going so fast. I don't know, it seems like something that could end badly. What if we regret it? I understood his concern. The risk was real, but I also believed that our relationship was strong enough to face this type of adventure. This wasn't an impulsive idea. It was something that I believed could bring new energy to us, rekindling the passion that, although present, was stifled by routine. I understand Diego, and look, if it doesn't work out, or if it's not what we expected, we'll stop. But I think it's worth trying something different, exploring new things together. And you, what would you do in this situation? Comment below and take the opportunity to leave your like. Diego took a deep breath and slowly sat down again, reflecting on everything with a now calmer look. He asked, "Have you spoken to her yet?" "No, not yet. But I think she would." I spent the next few days planning how to approach Natty. It wasn't a simple proposal, and even though I felt she would probably accept, the fear of risking our friendship still haunted me. But there was something inside me that said she would not only accept it, but perhaps already expected it. Finally, over a relaxed lunch, I decided to come clean. We were laughing about some old memories when I realized the timing was perfect. Now I need to talk to you about something, and please, if you find it strange or uncomfortable, let me know and we can forget about it. She leaned in, curious, trying to understand what I was getting at. What's wrong, Thais? I'm curious now. I took a deep breath. Gathering courage, Diego and I were thinking about spicing up our relationship, and I thought of you, Natty. Blinked a few times, surprised, until a mischievous smile formed on her lips. I see. You want me to participate, right? Relieved by his positive reaction, I let out a laugh, feeling the nervousness finally dissipate. She was silent, watching me with an unexpected intensity. Look, I've had this experience before, and it was incredible. But are you sure this is what you really want? I nodded firmly. Yes, I'm sure, and I know you're cool with the idea too. She studied me for a few moments longer, and then a smile spread across her face. It's okay, Thais. If you and Diego want to try it, I'm cool. But I just want you to be aware that this changes things. There's no going back. I knew what this meant, and felt prepared for what was to come. Night came faster than I expected, and Diego seemed nervous, which made me question for a moment whether I really should have gone through with this idea. I myself was torn between anxiety and excitement. Natty had agreed to arrive at 8, and I spent the day preparing myself both physically and emotionally, wanting everything to be perfect, even though I knew that not everything would be under my control. Punctually not arrived. She wore a tight, revealing dress and car, that confident smile that I had always admired. Diego was in the living room holding a glass of whiskey while visibly trying to control his nervousness. When Eddie entered, he stiffened. I noticed the restlessness in his eyes, but also a spark of curiosity that he was trying to hide. Are you ready? Anne asked with natural tranquility, as if it were just another ordinary night between friends. I approached Diego on the sofa and held his hand, wanting to convey calm. It's okay, love. We're here together. He looked at me, took a deep breath, and gave a slight nod. Okay, let's Trina approached, sitting next to us, and the atmosphere became charged with tension. The silence that followed only increased the expectation. Each of us waiting for a movement, without knowing how to start it, was now who decided to act first. She was always the most fearless among us, and that night was no different. With a subtle smile, he leaned over and gave Diego a light kiss, which made him hesitate for a moment before relaxing. His eyes met mine, as if searching for the reassurance he needed to move forward. I just nodded, letting the scene unfold before me. The tension that dominated the atmosphere began to ease as the night progressed. At first, it was like walking on unfamiliar ground, each movement fraught with caution. NY, however, seemed driven by a natural confidence. His gestures were precise, calculated, but flowed with spontaneity, guiding us through that moment without hesitation. If you're following our story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support makes all the difference and motivates us to continue bringing stories full of emotion to you. As she kissed Diego more intensely, I got closer and started stroking his back, trying to help him relax. At first, it was strange to see my husband being touched by another woman. Part of me felt an impulse to stop everything, but another, more hidden part, let myself be carried away by the fascination of the experience. Are you okay? I murmured to him. Not wanting to break the mood, he opened his eyes and looked at me, visibly confused. I am. It's just that this is all very new. Na turned to me, smiling calmly. It's like that at first, but believe me, you'll get used to it. I knew she was right. What began as an experimental novelty was soon transforming into something deeper, something bigger, seemed to emerge as the hours passed. The dynamic between us changed in unexpected ways. Diego, who had previously been hesitant, revealed himself in a way I had never seen before. And curiously, this made me even more involved. I, who initially seemed to have control, began to observe him from a new perspective, feeling something growing between us that I didn't know existed. The night ended. Surprising peacefully when it was all over, the three of us remained silent, absorbing what had just happened. Natty was the first to speak with a satisfied smile. "It was amazing, guys! Thank you for choosing me!" Diego, visibly exhausted, just nodded. I, on the other hand, felt something, awakening inside me, as if this was just the beginning of something bigger. After that first night, meetings with Na began to happen more frequently. In the beginning, there was always a hint of hesitation and uncertainty about how this would impact our marriage, but over time, these encounters began to feel natural, almost like an extension of who we were. Natty had become part of our nights, and Diego, who previously showed fear, now gave himself up more lightly. Each encounter brought something unique. Some nights were relaxed with laughter and conversations, while others were filled with an intensity that revealed previously unexplored desires. But with each new experience, a whirlwind of feelings emerged within me. The love I felt for Diego remained firm, but seeing him with Natty, so tune awakened something that I didn't know how to deal with one night after Natty left. Diego was silent for a long time, lying side by side. I felt the weight of his thoughts as if something was stuck, waiting to be said. "Is everything okay, Diego?" I asked. Turning to him, he sighed, still staring at the ceiling. "Yeah, I was just thinking about us, in us." "What do you mean?" I tried to understand, seeking some clarity. "I don't know, I never imagined we would experience something like this. And now that we're here, I'm wondering where could all lead us." I moved closer, running my hand over his chest in a reassuring gesture. "I think about that too sometimes, but we're here together, and that's what matters, isn't it?" He turned to me, and for a moment I saw a shadow of uncertainty in his eyes. It was as if we were both navigating uncharted waters, trying to find answers that perhaps only time could reveal something about. That answer made me uneasy, as if there was a hidden truth, something I still couldn't fully decipher over time. As the meetings continued, I began to not notice a subtle change between Diego and Na. It wasn't just a physical approach. They seemed to connect on a deeper level. There were laughs shared over jokes that I didn't fully understand, and exchanges of glances that seemed filled with something that escaped my understanding. And although I was part of it all, I began to feel like a spectator on the sidelines. This feeling of jealousy emerged slowly, taking root almost imperceptibly. I knew it was irrational. After all, we were the ones who started this, and Diego was always clear about his love for me, but even so, the fear of losing something I had always considered mine began to occupy my thoughts, growing silently. On one of those nights after NY left, I felt that I could no longer hide what I was feeling. I waited until Diego went to bed, and when the house was silent, I blurted out, "Diego, do you still love me?" He turned to me, surprised by the question, his eyes searching mine. "What, of course I love you, Tejas. Why are you asking that? Why does it sometimes feel like you and NY share something that I don't fully understand, something beyond what we together?" Diego was silent, clearly choosing his words carefully. This is part of what we started together. I don't feel about her what I feel about you, and I never would. She is an experience, a way of living something different, but you are my wife, the person I want to be with always for the rest of your life. I wanted to believe him completely, and maybe a part of me did, but the mixed feelings were still there, and I knew they wouldn't go away easily. The following weeks were marked by constant tension that continued to be part of our nights, but something had changed in me. She was more observant, more reserved, and Diego, despite trying to act natural, also looked different. The situation was starting to take a toll, affecting our marriage in ways I hadn't anticipated. Then one night, after a particularly intense date, Diego asked me to talk to Tejas. "I think it's time we stop this." My heart almost stopped for a moment as the weight of his words fell on me. "Stop? What do you mean?" I asked, trying to understand what he really meant. "I don't know if this is doing us any good. At first, it seemed like a great idea, something that would bring us closer, but now I feel like we're missing something essential." I sat on the bed processing his words. There was a mixture of relief and sadness inside me. It had become a part of our lives, an extension of who we were. And now Diego was saying he wanted to leave it behind. Are you sure? He nodded. Yes, I want to focus on us, just us. And so, just as it began, it ended the nights with Anna stopped. And we decided to focus our energies on rebuilding our marriage. It wasn't an easy path. There were still memories and emotions that needed to be understood. But little by little, Diego and I rediscovered each other, connecting not only physically, but also on a deeper emotional level. The experience with Natty taught us a lot about ourselves and what we were really looking for. And although there were times when I wondered if we had made the right decision, deep down, I knew our love was strong enough to withstand any challenge over time. Our relationship with Na transformed, but the closeness she brought helped us understand what really mattered to us. The silence between Diego and me was noticeable, but not uncomfortable. It was a dense silence full of reflections. We were both processing everything that had happened over the past few weeks, but neither of us knew exactly how to broach the subject without touching on still fresh wounds. Na continued to be my friend, but something subtly changed between us. She respected our decision, but a distance set in, an invisible barrier that no matter how much I tried to ignore, it was always there. We never mentioned what had happened, and maybe it was better that way at home. Diego and I were closer, but a new complexity hovered over our relationship, the experiences we shared with Na. Although intense led us to question what we were really looking for, deciding to stop meant we recognized our limits, but deep down I knew there were still conversations that needed to happen. On one of those nights, as we were sitting on the porch, the weight of everything we had experienced hung in the air, and I felt that perhaps it was time to face what still needed to be said. Diego broke the silence. "Do you miss this?" he asked directly. I remained silent for a few moments, carefully considering my response. I don't know. I miss the adrenaline, the newness, but at the same time, I know it couldn't last forever. Diego nodded, looking relieved. I feel the same way. It was exciting, but also risky, and I don't want to put what we have in danger. He held my hand, and I felt a new connection blossoming between us. That experience taught us a lot about our limits and the value of the trust we have built over the years. We were still the same, but now we knew we could face challenges and emerge stronger. In the days that followed, we made a conscious effort to rekindle our relationship. Getting back to the essential has become our priority. Romantic dinners, deep conversations, small gestures of affection that had been left behind over time, all of this became part of our routine. Again, we rediscovered what made us laugh, what connected us at the beginning of our relationship. Before all this, it was like a new beginning, an opportunity to meet again, just the two of us one afternoon. As we walked together at sunset, I realized that despite everything we had been through, we were still standing strong, stronger than ever. Diego pulled me by the waist and kissed me with an intensity that I hadn't felt in a long time. There was no hesitation or uncertainty. It was just the two of us reconnected. "I love you," he whispered, looking deeply into my eyes. "I love you too, Diego," I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. Maybe we needed all of this to realize how much we mean to each other. The friendship with Na remained, but the dynamic between the three of us changed definitively. Always. Honest Na decided to step back a little, giving Diego and I the space we needed to rebuild our bond as a couple. She understood that her presence in our lives had been intense and temporary, but that now we needed to move on sometime later. She invited me for coffee. I knew this moment would come, and I was ready to close this chapter. Definitively, Taze, I want you to know that it was never my intention to cause problems between you. Natty began absent-mindedly stirring her coffee cup. "I know, Na," I replied with a smile. "It was our experience, something we decided to live together, and you were part of this process. There are no regrets, only learning." She smiled with a touch of melancholy. "It was fun, wasn't it?" I laughed softly, feeling more at ease. Yes, it was, but it also brought a lot of confusion. In the end, I think we realized that what we really want is here between the two of us. Natty nodded, understanding. I understand you have something special. Tice never let anything or anyone get in the way of that. That conversation was the closure I needed. Natty would continue to be my friend, but now we clearly knew where our limits were, back in our routine. Diego and I were stronger than ever. We started talking more openly about our desires and needs, aware that we didn't want to fall into the trap of monotony. Again, we learned that to keep the flame burning, we didn't need to look for anything outside. We just had to look at each other with sincerity and courage one night. While we were lying down, Diego turned to me with that look I knew from the beginning of our relationship. You know, Ties, I don't think we've ever been as connected as we are now. I smiled, feeling the same certainty. I feel that way too. I think you're right, Diego. And you know what's best. We don't need anyone else for this. He wrapped me in a hug, and in the silence of our home, I felt like we had reached a new level in our marriage. What began as a search for excitement and novelty taught us that the most valuable thing has always been between us, the ability to reinvent ourselves together. Diego and I were no longer the same couple as before. We went through an intense and challenging experience, something that many couples might avoid. But in the end, it made us stronger. We discovered not only the limits of our relationship, but also the power of trust and mutual communication. Natty, although she was a significant part of this path, was now just a memory of a fate that we lived through and overcame. She moved on with her life, and we moved on with ours, stronger and more united than ever. As for the future, we knew it would be built on the lessons we learned, and although the idea of spicing up the relationship could come up again, we understand that the real secret to keeping the flame burning is in how we see ourselves with love, respect, and the constant willingness to explore together, always side by side. Did you like this story? I loved that it stayed here until the end. Subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more coming. Click on the videos on the screen and keep watching.